Hi, I'm Nathan. I go by Peteparker, and every week I do comic book reviews because that's what the rule at my house. If I want to keep buying them, I got to review them. So this review is going to be on X-Men Legacy number 251. This is written by Mike Carey and penciled by Koi Pham. And let's get into it. Basically, the fraction or a faction or a small grouping of the X-Men are going after aspects of Legion's personality, the guy with the kid and play hair from the 80s. They've excised themselves from his body and become real people, real mutants with their own powers, and basically they're hunting them down so that he can absorb them because they're very dangerous for some reason being out in the world. Even though they don't seem all that dangerous, all they seem to be is not wanting to be within Legion's body. So, the people on this team are Magneto and Rogue, and then there's Frenzy and Gambit, I think. I think that's the extension, and Legion, of course, but yeah. So in this one, they go after two at the same time, which is surprising. I would think that it would be stretched out for basically one aspect personality per book. But in this book, they go after a guy named Chain and a little girl named Susan in Sunshine. And then there's a mastermind behind this of one of the 6 personalities, or 5 or whatever, maybe even less, maybe it's even 4, who's named Styx, who's kind of behind this whole thing, orchestrating it. So basically they arrive in Paris, I think. Is it Paris? I can't tell. Maybe. They're in Europe somewhere. They basically found the beginnings of Chain, and Chain's power is really awesome. He has the ability to touch any person, and make them into a copy of himself with a different weapon, basically. So they are... each iteration of me has a different set of weapons, so... He's taken over this entire city, basically, more or less, has thousands and thousands of himself throughout the city, copies of himself with different weapons, and they're all basically attacking the X-Men. And so Legion explains that you have to get to number 1A, the very first iteration, to be able to defeat him or knock him out to get rid of all the rest, and everybody else reverts. And then he also explains at the same time that Susan in Sunshine, the little girl that they're going after, basically controls emotions more or less and makes people go crazy based on them. And the only way to defeat her is to make her sad. She's usually very happy all the time, which is kind of sad. And they talk about that too, they say. So we have to make a little girl cry to defeat her. That's pretty savage. But anyway, they of course meet these 2 characters and eventually absorb them through the multitude of Legion's abilities. Of course, both of these versions of Legion's aspects are messing with the X-Men for a little bit, but ultimately the X-Men defeat them by tapping into Legion's multiple abilities. Basically, in one aspect, Rogue absorbs like 3 of Legion's powers that she somehow dials in on his wrist and uses them to stop the infighting that's happening from Susan and Sunshine. And then Legion uses like a speed ability or something as soon as they pinpoint Chain, the main 1A Chain, to find him and absorb him real quick, more or less. And then Susan and Sunshine, they make her cry by Frenzy. Well, she rips the head off her dolly, but there's one part that's not really explained here. So it flashes, they're fighting in front of the Susan and Sunshine chick, right? And Frenzy is like slowly walking towards this girl and then rips the head off the doll, and she gets sad, and then her powers are gone. But they explained earlier that her powers are completely based on emotion. They make people like crazy towards each other or whatever. And, there's kissing in here and fighting in here, all based on what she's doing. But it doesn't really say that she's giving off energy or fire powers or anything like that. But that seems to be what she's doing there, as evidenced by the giant hole in the ground here that you may be able to see. And she says, Joanna, are you alright? Just a little hot to the touch right now. So obviously that was some kind of sunshine or flames or something coming off her. But it's funny that Legion didn't mention that. Anyway, I didn't even get it till I was explaining it right here. So then those two are out, and it turns out that those two were basically just setting the stage and being orchestrated by this evil Styx guy, so that he could swipe Professor X from the plane while they were trying to defeat him, more or less. So he swiped him or whatever, and they come back to the plane, and they're like, oh no, Professor X is gone. And this guy, Styx took him, we gotta go after him, he left our calling card or whatever. So, what do I think? Now, I don't like Legion. I never liked Legion. I don't like his earlier appearances. I don't like him here. I don't like the fact that he has a billion different superpowers that he can get into at any given time. And, it's all that easy, basically. And I don't necessarily like the idea that he's going out to absorb these personalities that haven't really done anything wrong or caused any mischief, except for they are fighting from being absorbed back into Legion, right? So really, they don't do anything wrong until the X-Men show up to battle them or whatever, and then they do stuff wrong, more or less, kind of. So I don't really get why they're being reabsorbed, and maybe that'll be an aspect of the story in the end, is that we didn't do anything. Think about it. We didn't do anything to you, and you did all this to me. Think about what kind of person you are, or whatever. And maybe he'll be off the team, which would be nice, because I'm really sick of that haircut. He can't have a normal haircut. Even the Mohawk in Age of X was better than this straight-up kid-and-play crazy haircut. I mean, is that an aspect of his mutant power? Is that just how his hair grows? That's, impossible. Or does he go through, a can of hairspray and mousse and all that crap every day? I don't know. I don't like him. But the art is really good. Koi Fam is awesome in here. The coloring adds a whole layer to this story, and you get to see a lot of powers in action. You also get some interesting powers that you don't typically see. Sure, Susan in Sunshine is kind of boring because she kind of has powers that you kind of already have seen before. But the Chain Guy is really interesting. He creates another duplicate of himself by touching somebody else, and each duplicate has their own weapon somehow. That's interesting, right? You don't really have to know how it works for it to be cool. And so basically that's the end of that. I don't necessarily like the cover either, but that's okay. Some news associated with the X-Men, before I give my final number, came out this week, or the end of last week, or the middle of last week, sometime since my last reviews, that they're basically restarting Uncanny X-Men. They're going to stop at 44, 344, 644, or whatever, 144 they're up to. And they're going to restart at 1, and then they're going to have another book called Wolverine and the X-Men in place of that book, basically. The X-Men are going to split into two factions and go their separate ways. What I don't understand is why they're creating a whole separate new book when they could easily take over Legacy or just generic X-Men in place of that and retitle it Wolverine and the X-Men. So, if you like the X-Men, it's actually good news, because you're going to have Wolverine and the X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, X-Men, and X-Men Legacy, probably, all at the same time. So you're getting another X-Men book coming out every month, which I like, sure, right? I'm up for that. It's a little hard to imagine. And a good point was made that what's going to happen to Uncanny X-Men, or Uncanny X-Force, when Wolverine's leading a team of X-Men. Hopefully Uncanny X-Force doesn't die, but it's kind of the inkling that they're going to rename. That's probably all rumors, probably not true at all, but maybe they'll rename Uncanny X-Force as Wolverine and the X-Men, who do their own thing that way, or whatever. Hopefully that book doesn't go away, because it's probably the best X-Men book that's out right now. But this is pretty good. I really enjoyed it. Despite not liking Legion and not really liking this particular story arc, I did like the art quite a bit, and I did enjoy the aspects of some of the personalities, some of the powers. It's a little cheap somehow, or in a lot of ways, how they get around beating these seemingly devastatingly powerful aspects of his personality, but I like it overall. I think it's cool, and I'll read the whole thing. I know it already, so I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. It's above average. I really liked the art and the coloring especially. And I really like the idea of Chain and the way he was used in here. Unfortunately, he was overpowered really quickly and done altogether. And if you think about it, is Legion going to be able to, since he's absorbing these characters, going to be able to use these powers later on? I wouldn't mind seeing, oh gosh, I'm about to say it. I wouldn't mind seeing Legion use Chain's powers to create, thousands of himself with that stupid haircut and all kinds of weapons, because it's a cool power, and Chain looked way better than Legion did. It also kind of would be cool if Legion took on the look of the person that he's taking on, so he morphs into that little girl when he becomes Susan in Sunshine or Chain, because they generally have better looks, and then he can change it whenever he wants to, but still maintains control or whatever, Maybe the bracelet will break. Maybe that'll happen. It's a good idea. Anyway, thanks for listening. There's a 4 out of 5 on Uncanny X-Men number 251. If you want to check out my other reviews, I'm SPIDY207 on YouTube, and Peteparker everywhere else. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you later.